Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Farzaka Shabu Muhammad Fazli from DC5B, and today I will be presenting the globalization of English in the country of Singapore. Singapore is a Southeast Asian country located between Malaysia and Indonesia, and it is known for its varying culture. Singapore is a multicultural country with multiple languages being used in the nation. With that, the English variety is also influenced by the multilingual aspects of the country. I really want to focus on the country's phonological features in this presentation, how the locals pronounce different words, and how it compares to the standard phonology of English. My interviewee for this presentation is actually a couple from Singapore. The first interviewee is Mariatul Kuptia, who is 29 years old and was born and raised in Singapore. Same goes with the second interviewee, Adam Shah, age 40. Both of them are Malay Singaporean and are very knowledgeable about the linguistics of English and have diverse experience with the same and other cultures in Singapore. Firstly, I would like to discuss the first aspect, which is their reaction towards the expanding power of English in their country. When asked, they responded by stating that this expansion of the English language is considered as something positive because the language itself acts as a unifying language due to how widely it is used among Singaporeans. The interviewee stated how English is regarded as the lingua franca of Singapore, and in order to survive properly in Singapore is to understand English and make sure that you know English well. The interviewee said to be able to converse with others in Singapore, you need to have a basic grasp of English to have a sort of understanding. Despite the many cultures and race that resides in Singapore, there's one common denominator, which is English. I will be sharing a video snippet that showcases the interviewee's question in its entirety and its answers. Moving on to the next question, which is the sixth question. How do you feel about the expanding use of English in your country?
I think it's good. I think it is very important that everyone try to at least have a basic grasp of the language, because like I say, it's so widely accepted, not just locally in Singapore or even in Asia, but even overseas when we travel. Even though I know it's nice that we are talking in the local language wherever we go, but the truth is sometimes we have no choice lah. English is the easiest way for us to communicate. So I think it's very good, very important, and yeah, I believe that in the future there will be even more initiatives where people will probably have more opportunities to learn. Like even in Singapore, the government has several campaigns every year about speaking not just English language but every type of language, whether it's Malay or Chinese or Tamil.
Yeah.
Even for English, they have like a speak good English campaign where they will have different kind of like exhibitions or showcase where they will try to just teach a little bit here and there lah, so to speak, so people are a bit more knowledgeable lah, so to speak, on the language.
Alright. Singapore has a rich history, and so is the history of English in Singapore, how it came to be and how it's developed through the years. It started when the British established a trading post on the island of Singapore in 1819, and the population grew rapidly thereafter, attracting many immigrants from Chinese provinces and from India. The roots of standard Singapore English derive from nearly a century and a half of British control. Its local character seems to have developed early in the English medium schools of the 19th and early 20th centuries, where the teachers often came from India and Ceylon, as well as from various parts of Europe and from the United States of America. Can you tell me how you use English in different situations or settings? That being maybe in a workplace or while talking to friends or at home, in different situations.
I guess for conversational English, it can go like professionally or casually. So of course, with friends and family, we will speak English casually.
Yeah.
But like certain things we can, if professionally we can't use the same words or the same similar words to express ourselves if we work or when we are dealing with professional clients, or so technically if like at home we will just use like simple English, not like those bombastic words.
Yeah.
But at work we
It
will
tends
try
to
to
be.
be formal. you
Yeah,
know.
and it's also interesting because like for Auntie Maria, she works in an office where maybe English is not used 100% of the time. Or even for me, if I were to go out, even for anybody in Singapore, if we were to go out to places like maybe to the market or maybe to a shop or something where maybe the person speaks English, but maybe it may not be their first language. We may try to speak to them first in English. But if they don't understand or if it seems to be easier for us to converse in a native language, whether it's Malay or Chinese or Arab or Tamil or any language, we will have to switch lah. But
Oh.
even those so-called like maybe the older generations that may not have been so comfortable speaking English in the past, I think even they over the years have learned and pick up quite a few English words or at least a basic conversation lah, in order to be able to speak to people a bit easier rather than everyone is confused, you don't know what's going on, it can be quite frustrating.
Currently, the English language is regarded as the main language of Singapore to converse between the local people of Singapore and also to international visitors, as Singapore is an economically developed country. The English language serves as the lingua franca of the country and is integrated into the lives of the country's people. People start to learn the English language since they are little and is formally introduced in kindergarten and is taught as a second language in primary and secondary institutions in the country. With this, the interviewee also stated how English proficiency in Singapore is not heavily influenced by social class, but instead by education exposure. The more educated a person is, the more proficient they would be in the English language. And since Singapore is a first world country, education is very accessible, and that influences how most of the people in Singapore falls under the acrylic category instead of mesolect or basilect. Now, this is the last question of this interview, which is, how does social class or education level affect pronunciation in communities?
Mm. I think so. Maybe if we go back to the past, maybe I would say even recent as 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, I guess it will be quite different where, like I say, maybe the older generations, right? They may not be so well versed in English as like a speaking language. It may not be a conversational language that they are used to. So we still have a lot of people only able to speak Malay or Chinese, Mandarin or Tamil, for example. And it can be quite difficult to converse with them sometimes if we, maybe a younger generation, don't really brush up on our native language speaking. But like I say, fast forward today, even if we are talking about social class, whether we are older generation, younger generation, whether we are from low level, middle, or even high class of society, right? I think so. English is very well ingrained. Even if you do not, even if you are not able to have like a very professional conversation with a professor about English, you can still go to the supermarket and speak basic English, and someone will be able to understand you, no matter who you are or what you're doing in job. I think English is a basic skill that we have in Singapore. Thankfully, we are quite lucky that quite taught very well to us in schools. That we have no choice but to make it a part of our lives, no matter who we are.
For the phonological features that are present in Singaporean English, I believe it applies more to those who fall under the mesolect or basilect category, because those who are in the acrolect category can pronounce these words correctly, despite being in an outer circle country. The pronunciation of Singaporean English is either very literal or simplified. This can be seen with words such as vegetable, where it is pronounced as vegetable instead. An example on the simplification of pronunciation is with the word divorce and client, where it is pronounced as divorce and client, respectively. I also have more examples that I will show you, and I will pronounce every example that I found. First, the is pronounced as the in Singaporean English. They are absent with the th sound. They can't really pronounce th as in theta. Instead, they pronounce it as a d word, which is the, instead of the. So they pronounce it the. And the second one, tuition. Instead, they would say it as tuition. Tuition, like tuition. They don't say it as tuition. They say it as tuition. Which is another simplification of the words that are available in the English language. And another one that I found is the word opportunity, where they would instead say opportunity or opportunity. It is very simplified and very different compared to the standard English, but this is what makes Singaporean English different. Another one that relates to the th sound is the word three, where they would pronounce it as three. Just a very simple T sound, which is three instead of three. They don't have the th sound. And yes, I also said about the client and divorce and vegetable in the previous one. Number 8, I would pronounce sword. They would pronounce it is sword in the standard English. It's pronounced as sword. The W is a bit subdued and kind of hidden, but in Singaporean English, they would pronounce it as sword. Sword. Like the W is very pronounced, like sword. Instead of like the subdued version in the standard English, where the W is instead they're almost hidden, just like H in hour. So yeah, next, moving on, is the word flower. In Singapore, they say it as flour. They don't say it as they don't sound similar to the word flower, but instead they pronounce flower as flour. I think this is more cultural. They want to differentiate the word flower, the plant, and also flour, the ingredient. So they're trying to differentiate that by saying flour. And next is algae. Instead of saying algae, they say algae. Because yeah, this also falls under the literal pronunciation of phonological features of Singapore. Next, cement. Instead, they would simply say cement. And women, they would say it as woman or woman. Either one of them, either one of those pronunciation will be pronounced that way in Singapore. They don't really have the O as E in standard English. Like we say women, like women, they say woman or woman or woman. So it's very literal. There's no like hidden pronunciation rule in Singaporean English. And lastly, the word subtle. Instead, they would be very literal and word for word say it as subtle. They pronounce the B and they pronounce the T and L in a very direct way, and they would be say like subtle instead of the usual standard English variation, which is subtle. So that's all for the phonological examples in that I can find from this interview and from my research on Singaporean English. Singaporean English is also non-rhotic, which means the letter R is usually not as pronounced in a word compared to a rhotic pronunciation. For example, the letter R in farmer. In a rhotic pronunciation, they would say it as farmer, but in a non-rhotic pronunciation, they would say it as farmer.
Amidst the subtle whispers of opportunity, three clients discussed their fortunes over a lavish dinner. The topic shifted from vegetable preferences to the rising cost of tuition, a matter as sharp as a sword. One shared a tale of divorce, navigating life's storms. The yacht they dine on rocked gently, a metaphor of their unpredictable journeys. Each person held a unique key to unlock a future unseen. The word "the" echoed frequently, binding their diverse stories. In this moment, they recognized the vastness of possibilities, an ocean of opportunities stretching beyond the horizon, awaiting exploration.
Woo! Yeah.
Thank you so much. For my personal reflection and summary, I believe that from this investigation, I get to really understand and observe how the English language differs from each country, even if the country is close by. From my research and interview sessions, I can conclude that English is a language that is widely used in Singapore and is considered as a unifying language and also the lingua franca of Singapore. Additionally, the local languages of Singapore, which is Malay, Mandarin, Cantonese, and Tamil, also influence how Singaporean English sounds and pronounced. That's all from my part, and I will be passing the presentation to my next team member.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Khalisa Nadia binti Tazri from DEC5B, and today I will be presenting about the globalization of English in the country of Philippines. The Philippines is a Southeast Asian country located in the Western Pacific Ocean. The capital city is Manila, and the country has a diverse population with influences from Malay, Spanish, Chinese, and American cultures. The Philippines has a long history of language contact and linguistic borrowing due to colonization and trade. This has led to intricate language patterns and variation across regions, making it an interesting case study for examining phonological phenomena influenced by language contact. Besides, the socio-linguistic landscape of the Philippines is complex with various factors such as social class, education, and urbanization influencing language use and phonological features. Investigating these factors can provide insights into how social dynamics shape phonological variation changes. Many indigenous languages in the Philippines are endangered due to language shift towards dominant languages like Filipino and English. Studying the phonology of these endangered languages can contribute to efforts in language rehabilitation and preservation. In this presentation, I would like to focus more on phonological features, how the local pronounce different words, and how it compasses the standard phonology of English. My interviewee is actually my father's friend, JB Kabibihan, 45 years old, local Philippines, born and raised in Philippines, who worked with my father a long time ago when he was assigned in Celcom, but now he works in Ericsson Company, which is telecommunications industry. He has a lot of experience since he already works in Philippines and other countries from various settings and use different languages to communicate. Firstly, I would like to discuss the first aspect, which is his reaction to expanding power of English in his country. When I asked him, he responded that the reaction towards expanding power of English in his country is considered as English language is already widespread in Philippines because their country already colonized by the Spain and American. Even though English language is being used as a Philippine, they still need to use their local language, which is Filipino, Tagalog. He also mentioned that learning English language is really important as English language play a main role in every aspect. For the next questions, how do you feel about the expanding use of English in your country?
It's not a bad thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we need to use English, yet we still have to use our local language. But yeah, because like I said earlier, the internet is around, everything is fast paced these days. So the use of English is very important. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't have any issues using English. Even when I speak to my children, I speak to them in English.
Oh, so when you talk in English with your children, you use Philippine also?
Sometimes,
Philippine
but
language
like
also?
Yeah, sometimes, only sometimes, but mostly it's English when I talk to them.
Oh, okay. Mostly you talk to them in English now, not in
Yes.
Philippines.
Yeah.
Okay. For the Philippines history, Philippines was colonized by the country of Spain for 300 years later on. During World War II, American colonized Philippines after the World War I in between 1926 century. Because of American colonized Philippine country for 10 years, so Philippine people adapted to English language easily. Besides, there are a lot of American in Philippines because the country in the map is Philippines, Pacific Ocean, and then United States. So that is how Philippine history is really started. For the fourth questions, can you tell me the story behind the spreading of English in your country?
Okay. So you mean the history, right? It's the history of
Yes.
English. Yeah. So because Philippines was colonized by Spaniards, by Spain,
Mm-hmm.
the country of Spain. So colonized in for 300 years. After that, Americans colonized us also.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, it was before the World War II when Americans colonized us. It's after the World War One. Then we're
Mm-hmm.
in between that period, 1920s, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember my history, but yeah, Americans were there colonizing us for 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. So
10
our
years.
people adapted to the language easily, and
Mm-hmm.
Americans love staying in the Philippines. So there are a lot of Americans in the country because after the Pacific Ocean, the country, the map, Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
Pacific Ocean, then the United States. So yeah, that's how it's really started.
In the terms of development and progress, English language is considered as the main language in Philippines because Philippines basically use English language for work, to communicate with other people, as same as discussion, email, and texting. So, Philippines use English mostly all the time. Can you tell me how you use English in different situations or settings?
Uh, I basically use it, especially here in Malaysia. I just use English. Work, like work, I speak English. How I communicate to the people, I speak English. Face-to-face discussions is in English. Emails, texting, everything is in English. So I that's how I use English all the time. I sometimes little bit of Malay bahasa I can use. Yeah, but yeah, it's mostly English. That's how I use it.
On the other hand, language proficiency and pronunciation differs based on education. In the Philippines, the people are divided into 5 classes: Class A, B, C, D, and E. A and B is for elite and rich people, Class C and D is average, and E will be the below of average. But even though they were below, they still can speak English. But based on the interview we say, how it affects is when the moment you speak in English. If the Philippines hear your slang, the way of you speak in English, they know which class you are coming from. In this situation, Philippines people can see how you speak English, whether you are educated or you are rich. So, that was a different class when speaking English, and it can affect even when applying school or job. The way you speak English is matters, so in Philippines is in not a full basis that people will be hard to accept it. It is clear that a person with more experience and education can pronounce words in a formal way, acrolect, as opposed to someone with lesser education background, basilect, or mesolect. Last questions. How does social class or education level affect pronunciations in your communities?
Okay, this one is tough. This is a different question. It's not tough, but there's a history behind it. Because I've been comparing Malaysia and Philippines. So here, I mean, the the social classes is not as divided as Philippines. When I say that, in the Philippines, even though Philippines is a third world country, our country is poor. Okay,
Yeah.
our country is poorer than Malaysia, but in the Philippines, the people is divided into classes, the type of class of a person or family you are. Class A, B, C, D, E. Now there is E. So
Wow,
A and B, yeah. A and B is those elite, those very, very rich people. Those C and D are the average. And then the E will be the below poverty line. So even though they're below poverty line, they can still speak English. But how it affects the moment you speak English, if the person, especially in the Philippines, they hear your slang, your way of speaking the English, they know which class you are coming from. So it's not an ideal situation that, people can see how you speak English, then they know that you're educated, they know that you have certain amount of money, they know that you belong to a certain family, something like that. So that's how it is. Yes, it's very unfair, but that's how, because we're colonized by Spaniards. So that's how it is in the Philippines. So there's a different class when you speak English, and it affects, well, even when you apply to a school, it will really affect how you get the interview for a school or for a job. Even though, yeah, applying for a job during your interviews, the way you speak English matters.
Yeah, I
Like,
hear it.
so yeah, that's how it is in the Philippines. It's not a good, well, in a way, there's some point for it, but it's not really a full basis of people being hired or accepted. But that's how it is.
As for phonological feature, I recognize the way he pronounced the words that I will be mentioned is different from standard English. For the first one is chocolate. He used to pronounce chocolate as chocolate as a three-syllable word. However, he also pronouncing chocolate to its last syllable like the English word le. For the second word, which is indigent, he pronouncing indigent as indigent, but still sounds as indigent like standard English pronunciation. For the third one, if you are using British accents, then it must be YouTube, sounds like YouTube. However, in the Philippines, it is common to imitate the American way of enunciating words. So, the pronunciation sounds like YouTube without the ch sound for the last syllable. The fifth word is news. He pronounced the word news is like news sound. The second last word is clean. The word clean is pronounced as clean. And the last word is chochoa, and he pronounced chochoa as cocoa.
In the realm of indulgence, chocolate reigns supreme, offering solace in its rich embrace. Yet amidst cocoa dreams, a diligent tutor imparts knowledge, guiding eager minds through academic labyrinths. Meanwhile, the relentless tide of news surges, inundating screens with tales both profound and trivial. Amidst chaos, a call to action echoes. Clean our world, mend its wounds. For the indigent, hope flickers, a fragile flame amidst shadows of neglect. In the digital realm, YouTube serves as both sage and jester, offering entitlement and amusement in equal measure. Amidst this cacophony, humanity strides forward, ever hopeful, ever resilient.
As personal reflection on the English language in the Philippines, it's fascinating to observe its multifaceted role and evolving dynamics within the country's linguistic landscape. English holds a significant position as one of the official languages alongside Filipino based on Tagalog. The usage of English among Filipinos, particularly in urban areas where it serves as a tool for communication, education, and socio-economic mobility. In summary, the English language in the Philippines embodies a complex interplay of historical, social, and cultural factors. Its widespread usage reflects both opportunities for advancement and challenges related to linguistic and equality. And now, I will pass it to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Liana Fisa binti Halim and I am from DEC 5B. Today, I am going to present about the globalization of English in the country of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a country located in the Middle East, occupying the majority of the Arabian Peninsula, and Islam is the official religion of Saudi Arabia. I chose Saudi Arabia as an expanding circle country is because it has diverse population, including urban and rural communities, as well as vary in levels of education and socioeconomic backgrounds, can provide insights into how phonological features are distributed across different social groups. Saudi Arabic also tends to preserve all the phonological features compared to other dialects. The dialects is including Najdi, Hijazi, and Gulf Arabic. Choosing Saudi Arabia as an interviewee can offer both phonological features of Saudi Arabia dialects and trends in Arabic linguistics. My interviewee for this presentation is actually a director of Dala Restaurant in Kuantan, Kamal Muhammad Al-Farzai. He is 39 years old and was born in Yemen. He has done degree of engineering for 6 years in Malacca and continuing his study until Master of Project Management. He has knowledges and experiences since he was in Saudi Arabia until right now, successfully manages 2 restaurants here in Kuantan. Firstly, I would like to discuss about the aspects towards the reaction to expanding power of English in Saudi Arabia. The answers from the interviewee shows that it was hard to speak English at first because the lack of knowledge. But when English is compulsory subject in schools and its importance has grown significantly in recent years. Moreover, the interviewee also points out about the people there can slowly speak in English because the help of media and technology that continue arising. With the expanding power of English in Saudi Arabia, it is totally increasing and become normal to speak English.
Okay. So how do you feel about the expanding use of English in your country?
Okay, if I tell you some before, in my time when I was there, it was hard, like people to speak English. Now, with the media, with the technology that people have, even small kids, they can speak. Really small kids with the like media, they learn from Google, they learn from this one. So the English become now, anyone can learn it if they want, like by Google, by some website. It's not like in our times very hard. So in my country now, you see English. If you tell someone I can speak English, for them like it's become normal. Oh, not like before. Wow, you can speak English. Become normal like that.
So let's move on to history, development, and progress. As I did some research about Saudi Arabic history, they did not experience direct colonization by European powers. Instead, it did come under the influence of foreign powers, particularly Britain. The Treaty of Darin in 1915 helped Ibn Saud consolidate his power and secure British support. Furthermore, the discovery of oil in commercial quantities in Saudi Arabia in the 1930s, the Saudi government granted concessions to American oil companies, which is Aramco, Arabian American Oil Company. And the independence of Saudi Arabia officially declared in 1927. They has maintained its independence and sovereignty as a nation state in the modern era.
Can you tell me how you use English in different situations or settings? How do you use English in different situations?
Different situation. Okay, I tell you. in my work, in my house, in my like the situation in the business and situation in my house. I use both the English and like I will use both in English.
So for the next questions, which is the level effect of pronunciation on between social class and educational level, the interviewee said about when studying, the people are using the same words, which is everything is the same in terms of grammar, word class, and so on, because of the same level of education. So when they are more advanced in English, the more knowledge they can get. It is based on different people, different social and different society in terms of the pronunciation when communicate in English.
So, how does social class or education level affect pronunciation in your communities?
The social.
Maybe a social class or education level, the pronunciation of social level of maybe the education level is higher, how they pronounce, or you know what I mean, the academic level.
The academic level. Okay, when you study like in foundation, you are using some kind of the same words, the same voltage, ampere. Like some word like you always repeating the same word. So you already master in English. Then when you reach to another level, you found yourself, you still want to learn that one. The more you go advanced, the more you need something to learn. It's like you need that. Yeah, we cannot stop at one level. This is how the social communication. When you found some like African, how they speak English, or this is the social communication also. Different people, different society. Every society you will learn something, how to speak, how they like. I remember I was in a hospital, and the nurse was Indian. When she come to speak to my friend, he not understand, but I understand. You understand? It's English, but the pronunciation that she said, he cannot catch, but I can catch, even though his level English is good, because he never listened to that pronunciation. That's social, like how it really affects.
So let's move on to phonological features. I recognize the way he pronounced the words that I will be mentioned is different from standard English. For the first one is waves, so it will be waves. Next one, young as young, water as water, match as marsh, and the last one is chaos as choice.
The sea stretch out endlessly to the right of the taxi as it speeds along the coastal road. I will try to speak with Arabic like slang that make it very hard for them to read it. Huh?
Okay.
The roar of the waves echoing the distance inside the cab. A young woman sat handle under the blanket, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her cry is barely audible over the rumbling of the engine. Collecting her that hat tightly in her trembling hands, she gazed out at the vast expanse of water, feeling almost admits as vastness. The rhythm motions of the waves seemed to match the tremble in her heart. Each crest and thought reflecting of her inner voice. As the taxi continued its journey, she found herself longing for the comfort of familiar, the safe harbor amidst the storm of her emotions.
As a personal reflection of English in Saudi Arabia, they will encompass its widespread usage in various aspects of society, influenced by factors such as education, commerce, technology, and international relations. English is a compulsory subject in schools, taught from an early age. English also serves as the language of international business in Saudi Arabia. Also, it plays a significant role in the technology sectors and media. Overall, English plays a vital role in English plays a vital role in Saudi Arabia as a language of education, business, communications, and international interactions, contributing to the country's integration into the global community.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nurdamia Kistina binti Buhairin. I will be presenting about Thailand. Why Thailand is my chosen country. So Thailand is an expanding country. So Thailand actually has a very interesting background history of English. The next main point that I want to highlight is English language evolution in Thailand because the evolution of English in Thailand is a testament to the country's openness to linguistic exchange. Now, I have my interviewee, which is my friend who is a Thailand citizen who now is studying in Sanwi College. His name is Master Ruslan Jasamae. He is 20 years old. He has been living in Thailand his whole life but has moved to Malaysia nowadays to further his studies in engineering in A levels. The reason why Master Ruslan is the perfect candidate for me is because he is a native speaker of Thai and he speaks Thai with his family members, and Thailand is basically his first language. Moving on to my first point, when asked Master Ruslan about how is his reaction towards the expanding of English in his country, he mentioned about nowadays that more people start to use English in his country and the way it has expand and rise, it is a very positive thing, and is he is actually very happy about it. And he also very much acknowledge how English is the most used language in the world and is globally a good thing. Question is, how do you feel about the expanding use of English in your country?
For me, I think it has a positive effect in our country. Like we can exchange global communication because of how English is like among used language in whole world, right?
Okay, for my next point, which is historical, started back in days when King Mongkut realizes the importance of English, which is a very interesting fact because apparently Thailand was never colonized by Western powers. And so Thailand, never being colonized, somehow is actually impacted too towards interest of why English is important for his country. Our country in Thailand.
If I'm not mistaken, it's like I can trace back around 19th century. Our King Mongkut Ramat Forts like have noticed the importance of English in our country, but our King Chulalakon, the Rama Fifth, the son of the Rama Forts, modernized the English in our country and like encourage more English proficiency in Thailand.
Basically, to sum up our conversation, I can say that in the past, Thailand, who also was known as Siam, wasn't really colonized by Western powers. However, English found its way into the country through trade, diplomacy, and missionary activities. Early English education was primarily facilitated by Christian missionaries, laying the foundation for the English language learning in Thailand. So basically, Thailand embraced modernization and globalization now, especially in the 20th century, because the importance of English is now growing significantly. It has become a key tool for international communication, trade, and tourism, and a lot more. Now, moving on to the development of English country. Master Ruslan talked about how the English nowadays are more broad than the English back in those days, and he explained how the changes of era influenced the development of English in Thailand. So the era talked about here is the era where nowadays we have social media, we have TV shows, we have dramas, we have many source of English where the people of Thailand can reach out to, because Thailand, just like how Masur Ruslan said, Thailand is an expanding country that is quite low on sources, and the even now that we are in the modern era, there are countries that is very rural and very countryside that they don't even know how to speak English. And even Master Ruslan have said about how in Thailand he and his family would speak in Thailand than in English or even in Malay now that he knows Malay, because Thailand is a very main language and is still a main language even now.
Sure, sure.
Wow, so your the spreading of English in your country is mostly really because of your king.
Yeah, because of for like education as a business, because we saw it as opportunity to make a
Hmm?
lot more money worldwide.
Now, for the current English in the Thailand, it is a bit similar to what I said just now about how even nowadays in Thailand there are certain area where people of Thailand don't know how to even speak in other languages except Thailand. But in big cities, it's a different case. Why? Because in big cities, which mostly is in Bangkok, is very huge because just Masters Land said Bangkok, big cities such as Bangkok, they have international schools, they have all the government people, all the politicians, the elite people are very familiar with English and is using it as their second and a bit of a main language.
Can you tell us a bit more about how important English is now for you guys in Thailand?
So I think like around the back 19th century, the only like rich people, businessmen or education people use English. But in the modern country now, we have like online, a lot of media
Mm,
socials, so we tend to learn English more openly.
I
Okay.
see.
Now, for my next point, which is the Thai-English accent. So, this is the most interesting part because Master Ruslan explained to me what makes Thai English accent differ than the other accent, because I believe we all have heard about Thai accent in across social media across the world, especially in TikTok where people speak in Thai accent. And I asked Ruslan personally on how to differentiate Thai accent than other accent, and he told me basically it has stress on certain level of word, and we had a great discussion about why Thailand is very unique in its own way and how the influence of their accent of how they speak in their local language and those things influence the way they speak even in English. And also because Thai is basically their first language everywhere around Thailand, and when you basically if you want to go to Thailand, it is better for you to speak and learn about Thai a bit because not all of them are fluent in English.
Can you elaborate more on how Thailand usually speaks English? Because basically how Thailand accent is, because I noticed Thailand has um like the sound that you guys make when you speak is you have a certain sound, specific sound where you sound exactly like Thailand no matter what language you speak. I want you to elaborate more on how and what is the sound.
I think we have the one sound like
Mm,
cup, something like. So when even though we say good evening,
mm.
like cup, good evening, like a bit
Ah
that kind of
yeah, yeah, you
is
will
like we
lengthen.
will keep it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
So maybe because of our culture and
mm,
accent that affect it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how would you define
Mm,
the Malay Thai
I think
English?
we influenced by our accent and culture that affect our pronunciation and vocabulary.
Can you give an example?
Um, Examples.
Mm-hmm.
How do I say it? For like in Thailand, we always say cup, and then we have a bit like slang that we have. So when we try to speak English, it will be effect and misunderstood the way that we speak in
Mm.
English.
Now, moving on to the phonological features of Thai accent and the words that is in standard English with the pronunciation of Thai English, where I'm going to speak these words with a standard English accent and the Thai accent. We will start with the first word, which is frown. Now, for the Thai accent, the phonological expression of it is they didn't say fra. They couldn't, with their accent, they couldn't conclude the both the F and R together, which is the consonant. They have to add vowels to it, just like how they speak in their accent, which is frown, like that. So even the round frown, they have to emphasize the letter O. They have to use it as round, like that. Okay, for the next word, which is smoke and strike, they still, just like the first one, if they put consonant and consonant together, they can't speak the word. They have to add vowels to it. They have to add so it's for smoke it'll be samok, and for strike it will be satarai. So for the strike, they have to stress on the t, and they have to add a little bit of to it. So it's like sataraik. It's like that. And then for the fourth word, which is strew, it is exactly the same as the two before, which is smoke and strike, where they will pronounce it as sakaru, like that. And then we have COVID. So for the COVID, they can't speak the letter v. They can't pronounce it. So it will be COVID. So even as COVID, where we emphasize the vid part, they don't really stress on that. They will simplify it as COVID. For the sixth word, which is seven, just like COVID, they can't pronounce the letter V, and they will pronounce it as seven, like that. And then for the seventh word, strawberry. So this is where it get interesting, because for this word strawberry, there are so many parts where we pronounce it easily, just like how there are so many consonants basically in this word, so they have to put a lot of stress into this word. So it, from strawberry, it became strawberry. So they have to put vowel in most part of the word. And then for the next, which is lotus, they will pronounce it as lotus, like that. And for the ninth word, which is style, it will become satire. So that is the end of the phonological words for Thai English. Now that we have reached the end of our presentation, I would like to share my personal summary and reflection on Thai English. So English is an influential language. The effect it holds to a country like Thailand is one of the significance of a changing point for the country. For instance, with now an expanding usage of English, the educational, governmental, and many aspects of Thailand are now also rising. So the phonological aspect of a country's language determines the fluency and the rising pace of the country's English. Just like how when I researched about Thailand, and how when I talked to my interviewee about Thailand's phonological aspect, which is the accent, the tone, the how they pronounce stuff. So it really is rely on how they speak their own local language and how they pronounce their own local language. And so it is a very an eye-opener for me, because from here and out I know how to some people why they have accent and why it is hard for them to sometimes speak word and few words. And so the history of English in Thailand is influenced by various factors, including colonialism, globalization, education, and cultural exchange. Now, this is the most interesting part that I get from this session, which is how English is impactful enough that it even affect the country like Thailand that has never even been under the influence of them, but somehow they still make and help Thailand to expand their countries, making it the expanding country, and why Thailand is a very great country to choose. Thank you very much. Bye.